Hello, my name is David Karnowski. I am the embedded tutor for Professor Siklick's COSS 271 course for the spring 2023 semester at LBCC. I am here to offer you a quick methodology that's an alternative for anyone who's running an M1 or M2 based Apple product, specifically the MacBooks and Macs. If you are finding that your Apple Silicon device is not working for the first virtualization assignment of installing a Kali Linux VM, I might have an alternative solution. Professor Siklick has gone ahead and given us permission to use a different hypervisor for the first start of this assignment. The reason being that you might find that Oracle VirtualBox is not available to run on this type of architecture. So if you go to mac.gettoutm.app, go ahead and start your download by clicking on the download button. That's going to download a disk image, a DMG file for the application. If you feel like supporting this project, you can also pay $10 through the Mac App Store and download it that way. A quick look over while you're waiting for that download to complete. You'll see that essentially UTM has wrapped up the older style and still used QEMU virtualization system, as well as plugging into Apple's new system for virtualization on their Apple Silicon machines. Okay, by now you should have it downloaded. One other thing to consider about the UTM app is that there is a well-supported GitHub page, including a discussion tab that has excellent and well-updated solutions from the developers themselves. If you are struggling with this solution, please know this solution is just a temporary fix for you. If you should still learn how to do the VirtualBox solution for the assignment. But if you are in a pinch and don't have a PC to use, by all means try this methodology. Now finally, there is one other download that we're going to need to do that you're definitely going to want to get started, and that is on Kali.org. Kali.org, get-Kali. If you go to that website, it will bring you to the download page of Kali Linux. You can scroll down to installer images, or you can also click on it from the top. I'll show you guys right from the top here. Installer images. We're going to be doing essentially a full installation of it instead of implementing a pre-built image. As far as I'm aware, there is no ARM64 pre-built version of Kali Linux available directly from the Kali organization. I believe that you have to do a full installation. There might be a live, I think there is a live version though. So installer. This you can download it directly from the server, or you can torrent it, and I'll go ahead and let you get that started now. I already have it downloaded, so please feel free to pause the video right now and complete your download. That's going to download a multi-gigabyte ISO file into your downloads folder, and get back with me shortly here. Now that those downloads are completed, you'll find them in your downloads folder. We're going to go ahead and open up and mount the UTM disk image. By dragging the UTM icon into the applications folder, you're installing it. You can hear the ding that happened. Inside of your applications folder now at the very bottom you should find UTM, and go ahead and launch the application. So once again, UTM is a hypervisor. You're going to be installing Kali Linux as a virtual machine. You need to authorize UTM to run on your system because it's not directly from Apple or been directly signed. Inside of UTM, you're going to find similar interfaces to what VirtualBox has. You're going to be either creating a virtual machine. It's going to be listing on the left side of your screen here. UTM does have a gallery of images. It's a really interesting place, and you can explore that later. The way that we'll be adding our Kali virtual machine today is by clicking on Create New Virtual Machine. And we are actually going to be virtualizing. We're not going to be emulating our virtual machine. On the operating system selection, go ahead and click Other. And now you're presented with a dialog box that allows you to select an ISO image to boot the virtual machine from. Go ahead and navigate to your downloads folder and click on the Kali Linux. This is, of course, the 2022.4 installer ARM64 ISO. Go ahead and continue your installation. Once you've got that selected, it's going to bring you into the hardware setup. Depending on the amount of memory that's based on your Mac, you might want to consider increasing the memory, and depending on what you're going to be doing with your virtual machine. I'm going to go ahead and increase that up to 8 gigabytes. I think I have 16 total available, and I'm going to increase my core count up to 4. The storage size of your virtual drive is essentially a file that's going to sit on your computer that represents the hard drive of your virtual machine. This can be as low as I think 30. I'm going to set it at 32. If you want to have more space available to your virtual machine, for instance, if you're going to be participating in the National Cyber League events, you might want to have room to download a rainbow table. in which case you might want to have more space available, or at least have a shared space to access it, or be familiar with accessing it via USB. I'll hit continue on that. So this is your space that you can select a shared directory. This is not an option that I use, but if you want to experiment with this, feel free to. I'm going to hit continue. This is a summary of the virtual machine that we're creating, so I'm going to go ahead and label this as my Kali Linux 2022.4, and this is an Apple virtualization. I'm going to open the settings because there is some things we need to do before we launch our virtual machine. Okay, this is your setting dialogs box. If you get confused and you miss that last checkbox, it's not a big deal. If you've now created the virtual machine according to our instructions so far, on the left-hand side of your screen, you will find the new listing for your virtual machine. If it's highlighted, you can contextualize, click it, right-click, or double tap on your Mac. You can also click up here on settings. And this was essentially the preferences or the settings for your specific virtual machine. This is the same kind of settings that you would find in Oracle's VirtualBox. There are obviously some differences. These are the types of architectures and where you can change things like your memory afterward. You can change the cores that are available. There are very specialized QEMU commands that you can make if you're doing any kind of special networking. Of course, input devices are available by USB, the sharing stuff that you have available. This is more important if you're doing clipboard sharing between like a Windows virtual machine. Now under your display, we are going to change something here. The emulated display card type, we're actually going to switch to the RAM FB, the Virtual I/O RAM FB. And then under network, we're going to switch the networking mode to abridged or advanced. This is where it gets a little more complicated, and you just have to pay attention real quickly as we do this. We need to identify the device that's currently on your Macintosh host computer that is going to provide internet into our bridged system of our virtual machine. So we can do that by a couple quick commands using terminal. So open up your Mac OS X terminal. You can find that inside of your applications directory, or you can also just hold down command, hit the space bar like I did. That brings up your search bar. Hit term or terminal. Enter, and it will give you your terminal window. Now that you've got that terminal window opened up, if you type in ifconfig, it will display the different types of networking devices that you have available. And if you scroll through these, you probably don't have as many as I have set up right now because I've got some specialty stuff set up. But you will find a specific interface, a networking interface, that does in fact list like your local network at the moment. So this is my local network address, and I know that I can access it by typing in EN4, which is my Ethernet network interface 4. So you can see here it's got a ghosted text of EN0 to give you an example of what it might look like. We're going to type in EN4 in my system. This number is likely going to be different for your system. It might be the same. This is where you need to use a little bit of your curiosity. If you need some help, reach out via Slack in the COSS 271 or in the general channel for the LBCC cybersecurity Slack space. Okay, there are advanced settings that you can do for the network. You can isolate the guest from the host. You can do specific IP address settings and whatnot. We don't need to use any of those special settings. We're just going to use bridged mode, and we're going to make sure that we have the proper Ethernet interface, or I'm using Ethernet, you guys might be using Wi-Fi, selected for the bridged interface. I'm sorry, there is one other setting that we need to change, guys. So if you went ahead and hit saved, you need to open up your settings once again. And that is that we need to add a serial console onto our virtual machine. And this will help us through what is essentially an issue that UTM is having right now with a dependency in their development software, where they're dependent on another package and it broke part of their system. So in order to get this installed, we do need to add a serial terminal. And what you see right now when you save this, and you click play to operate your virtual machine and start it for the first time, this actually is going to open up two windows. One is your main screen, and the other is that console that we added right now. Clicking in either one should work. I think I'm going to click in the smaller one here where it says Terminal 1. So this is literally the terminal screen that we've added, the serial screen that we've added. It's a console to our virtual machine temporarily. As you can see, there's a graphical install, regular install. We're going to go do the regular install on this from the grub menu here. So you can navigate, if you've never navigated menus like this before, by using your up or down keys or your tab key to get through different kinds of sections of the menus. Something to get used to if you're going to be doing any kind of virtual machine installation from scratch. So I'm going to make sure that I've got install highlighted, and I'm going to press return on my keyboard. Okay, the Kali installer has loaded, and we're going to select English for our localization unless you need something different. United States is going to be my location, and I'm going to be using the key map of American English. This process is going to load and begin to initiate the installation sequence. We do have one more menu to get through before the bulk of the installation. So you can take a look at the clock now. It's about 5:25 my local time, and we'll see just about how long this process takes. I've found from my experience last semester that this was quite snappy for me, the way that this ran. So it looks like our network did go through. It did obtain a DHCP address. I'm going to leave the default name of Kali for the host name. I'm going to leave the domain name blank. I'm just pressing enter when I did that, guys, to get through those screens, so or return on my keyboard. Now looking here, this is your username, a full name for the user. You do not need to put this. I can press enter here, or I can, like I mentioned before, I can use like the tab key, and it will actually allow me to select through these different menu systems. So if you've never done that before, it can be a little confusing, but hitting tab until the one that you want is selected, and then hitting the return key will allow you to select that option. This next menu system, we're going to select a username. This is extremely important. If you want to use the default credentials that come with the pre-built version that the class is using, you would use Kali here. I'm going to put M1 Kali just to be a little different here so I know. So it's a M1 Apple Kali. And then my password, I'm also going to put something different here, and I encourage you not to use the default passwords. Pressing enter or tabbing to navigate to the continue, and re-enter the credential again. Okay, next brings us to our time zone selection. I'm going to scroll down by using my down arrow on the keyboard, and I'm going to use the enter key to select Pacific. Alrighty, next we're going to be setting up the virtual hard disk system, and this is like if you were installing Kali onto a bare metal system, this would actually be doing this to your entire disk. What we're working on right now is purely that virtual drive that we set up when we were inside of UTM creating the virtual machine. So we're going to use the entire disk in a guided method. I pressed enter to select that, and again, this is, like I said, it's approximately 32 gigabytes, and our virtual device. We're going to go ahead and put all the files into one partition, the default selection. You can go ahead and press enter again. And a couple more screens here just to make sure that we know what we're doing with our partitions. These are the auto setup selections of partitions. Your final warning, if you were doing this onto a bare metal machine, you would want to double check your work. I'm going to hit the left arrow key to navigate over to yes and make sure that it's highlighted in red, and press the return key. And I think we are still going to get that one menu that I had mentioned earlier. It's going to allow us to set like a different desktop system if we want to, and a couple other options. I think we're just going to go with the defaults this time. You'll see what I'm talking about in just a second as the installation sets up. Okay, here is our software selection. Like I said, you can change to like a GNOME desktop or a KDE Plasma desktop. For the sake, unless you know what you're doing here, I would recommend just using the default. Some of the tutorials that we'll walk through with the professors and advisors, it's going to be easier. It's going to look more. It's going to look like what's on their screen if you keep the default setting here. I'm going to navigate to the continue selection by pressing the tab key once, and then press enter to continue. Okay, guys, this is the bulk of the installation process that's happening now. It's going to copy files and give us some setup. I'm probably going to time-lapse this in the video, and if you want to wait in real time, obviously, for your system to install, you'll be able to do so. And, you can watch the clock up here on my screen and see approximately how long this takes. This is going to truly depend on the resources that you put into the virtual machine. If you added more cores or more memory available, it might affect it. And depending on, of course, the actual specific Apple Silicon chip that you have. Okay, looks like our installation process is completing. And here just a little bit after the grub bootloader installs and a couple more steps, I think we should be pretty close to being able to remove our installation media. If you are familiar with installing old operating systems on computers, remember you used to have to eject the CD, eject the Windows CD. Sometimes you used to do it on automatically and it would pop out your CD for you. As soon as this installation is truly complete, it'll ask us to remove the installation media. We're going to be able to do that by clicking on this icon right here. You'll notice at the top of your VM window here, you do have several different things available to you, including like a way to organize the windows, the shared folder, the drive images available, the USB devices. So you're able to capture a USB device from the host computer, which is kind of cool. So if you need to use a USB thumb drive, you can. So the installation is complete, it says, and we can go ahead and we can eject that by clicking on this optical disc icon, navigating to the virtual CD DVD drive, and clicking eject. Now that we've done that and we're inside of our virtual machine, we can see that continue is already highlighted, so we will go ahead and press enter. And we'll go ahead and we'll click into the main window now, which is going to actually house our virtual machine. And UTM, of course, I've got some settings here that have my Mac locked down, so it might ask you for some permissions. If you want to allow your virtual machine to access your microphone from your Mac and it asks you this, you can do so. That will allow you to have a microphone input. I'm just going to click Don't Allow right now. And this is where you can put in the credentials that you set during the installation process. So I'm going to go ahead and enter my credentials. You can see here that we've now booted into Kali Linux. So a couple of things that I noticed right off the bat. We do look like we have an active wired connection. We're going to verify that before this video tutorial ends as well. Let's go ahead and let's open up our terminal window here by clicking in the terminal icon. You can see you've got a shell open here. We're going to type in IPA, and that's going to allow us to see our different IP addresses that are assigned to our Ethernet interfaces. So this is the Ethernet address that I've been assigned. You can see that it's in the same subnet that my home router was when we looked on my host computer. So I believe this is now a working bridged connection. Let's go ahead and we'll try to ping out to Google or ping lbcc.edu. And we are getting a response. So that we know that we are connected actively to the internet. I guess we could also then open up a web browser and just verify that everything is working okay. Like for instance, going to tryhackme.com. And you'll be able to log in. To be honest with you, I found that Kali runs, especially this ARM64 build, in an actual virtualized environment on a Mac. It's extremely snappy. I ran into a couple different snags last semester, but for 95% of what we were doing in both the National Cyber League as well as in COSS 273 and 271, I was able to use this system quite well. So a couple last things. If you do want to check things out, you can notice that I think the scaling is set up automatically so that you should be able to scale your virtual machine window on the host side. Clicking out of it, of course. Let's see here. I think it's scalable. Yeah, there we go. Grabbing a corner. I may not have the scaling set up right. It doesn't look like I do. So these are settings that you can play with. You can change those settings inside of UTM when the actual virtual machine is shut down, just the same way that you do it inside of Oracle's VirtualBox. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to shut down my virtual machine. You do it the same way you'd be turning off a computer. You can see the system goes blank here. And so go back and check that out. With this virtual machine highlighted, click on the settings. Now, one thing that I like to do before I start messing with settings like that, and I know I have an operating machine, I will contextual click on this, and I will do a clone. And then I will rename my original by editing it, and I will just call it something like my backup. And that way I know I've got a working operating system back there, and if I start messing with settings, the key networking settings, or trying to change the virtualization, something messes it up and the virtual machine fails, I'm able to roll back to that version that I did have operating. So these are some fun things to consider, guys. I do believe, and we can try it right now, I do believe that you can remove this People have had different results, it looks like, online from the different tutorials that I saw. We'll go ahead and try it. We'll see if it boots right. So that was a removal of the serial screen. If this boots to a black screen, then that means that the fix did not work. And it looks like it's going to work for us. So that way you don't have that extra duplicated screen up as well this time. So I'm going to go ahead and enter my credentials. As you can see from here, we've got a working system. So I encourage you to give it a try, see what works for you, what doesn't. This is an experimental installation. UTM is very much being developed still. So, learn the installation method for doing this on an x86 system. Use the COSS labs if you need to. Get a loaner laptop from the school if you need to. Those resources are available to you. In the meantime, I hope this helps you get your homework done, and I hope you have a good weekend. Thank you.